Khushwant Singh describes his grandfather further, and he says that looking at him, he seemed a sort of a person, a type of a person who would have a wife or a children. You could not make out that he could ever have a wife or a children. He looked like only as a grandfather and as somebody who can only have grandchildren. And as for his grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. Revolting here means that it was very hard for the author to believe. And the grandmother often told them of the games she used to play as a child. And this was also very, very appalling to little Khushwant, that how can she play like a child, because he had always visualized her as his grandmother. And all this seemed quite absurd. Absurd here in this context means illogical and undignified. That means disrespectful on her part, and we treated it like the fables. Fables are the fictitious stories with a moral teaching of the prophets or saints she used to tell us about. Okay, why it seemed illogical, absurd and disrespectful or undignified to him? Because you will also agree with me, or you can also connect to this, because we never expect our grandmothers to play, right, or to engage themselves into a game. They are always very divine and respectful people, right? So it was very difficult for this child to believe that she could ever have a game with her friends, or she could have real friends, or she was somebody who used to run around and play and have this life that she was describing. Okay, so it was very difficult for the child to believe that she can ever be as immature as a child, as mischievous as somebody who is very young. Because we don't keep our grandparents to that pedestal where we can ever think that they can create some mischief, or they can play games, or they can go out and run around and play. Okay, so that's why that kind of an image he had of his grandmother, and that's why it was very difficult for him to believe all this. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. Now, the repetition of the word everywhere to everywhere signifies here that the grandmother had wrinkles. She had crisscross patterned lines all over her face. Okay, she was very old. She was seen by these grandchildren as a very, very old lady who had these horizontal and vertical pattern of intersecting straight lines on her face. And they could not see beyond that. They could not believe that she ever was young.